Get on board the Bernier bus train. Come get on board the Bernier bus train. Once you hear that clickety-clack, there ain't no time for turning back. Oh, get on board the Bernier bus train.
Good morning, USA, and welcome to another episode of the Bernie or Bust Show. We're going to be watching Elizabeth Warren today. Trigger warning. And she's telling us that immigrant rights groups that we need ICE for our safety against threats of drugs and terrorism, and she refuses to commit to suspending deportations. That's just the first thing we're going to talk about. Take it away, Elizabeth.
We need ICE and Custom and Border Patrol. It is focused on real threats from terrorism, threats, container shipping that comes into the United States, contraband that we need to worry about, fentanyl that we need to be focused on. There are places that we should focus for our safety. So I am open to suspending deportations, particularly as a way to push Congress for comprehensive
That's good. Keep going.
immigration reform.
Oh, all right. I guess they weren't interested in that part. That was good, the last part she was saying. But, okay, here's another Warren comment. Warren disagrees with Bernie on whether billionaires should exist. There's Bernie Sanders' tweet, billionaires should not exist. So then Amy Goodman asked Elizabeth, I love Amy Goodman.
Okay. Billionaires shouldn't exist. There you go. Well, Elizabeth Warren got asked in a candidate forum this weekend in South Carolina whether billionaires should exist. Let's take a listen to her answer.
Bernie Sanders says there should be no billionaires. Do you agree with that?
No.
Why not?
Look, somebody has a great idea and they follow it through and they work hard and they build something. Good for them.
Good for them.
It actually sounds just like what she's been in this feud with this Leanne Cooperman guy, and it sounds very much actually like what he says about himself in the billionaire class.
Yeah, I mean, I think she said what she could, because if she would have said something similar, people are like, oh, look at these socialists. But I think what she's getting at is we are not saying that people should not be allowed to amass wealth. And I think what Bernie is saying, we shouldn't allow people to amass that much wealth. Let's be clear. He's a millionaire, right? He's not a billionaire, but he's not poor by any stretch of the imagination. But I do think what they're getting at is this idea that, or Bernie more specifically, is that when you are in a country with such great differences between the haves and the have-nots, it is a real question to ponder. Why should there be billionaires, right? Not to suggest we're going to take all their money and redistribute it,
right.
Although I think there's some who feel that. But definitely, we should not live in a country where there are people sleeping on the street, when
right.
there's so much.
Why not take it away and redistribute it? If you think about it, I wanted to say this during the show sometime, and this is a good place to say it. FDR made a deal with the rich people. He said, and this is from Professor Richard Wolff, if you want to go watch an earlier episode of the Bernie or Bust show. But Professor Richard Wolff said that FDR made a deal with the rich people. He said, either you give me the money that I need to take care of the American people, or you're going to lose all of your money. He said, you need to give me half of your money. And about half of the billionaires went with it. And so FDR helped. He started Social Security. He did all that, put Americans to work, helped them pay their mortgages. He pulled us out of a big pit of despair. And so, did he take away the billionaires' power? Did he take away all their money? No, he made a deal with them to rescue the American workers. And look what happened. After it was over, after World War II, the billionaires pushed back, and they've been changing the way media work. They've been changing the way the government works, the way the CIA and the FBI work. The rich people have their fingers in everything. And so they're trying to change the way people think about socialism, for example. They're trying to they see this as an existential threat. If FDR had instead just said, you guys are going down, we're taking all your money, you're not going to be billionaires anymore, you're not going to have your finger in everybody's pie, we're just going to take you out of power, things would be a lot different now. But FDR left the rich people in charge, and even though they had to give up half their money, look where they are now. So if we do an FDR again, like Elizabeth Warren wants to do, we're going to make deals with the billionaires, we're going to end up eventually in a worse place than we are now. We need to do the Robin Hood thing. That's what we need. We need Bernie. Bernie is compared to FDR, but I think Bernie is FDR plus experience. Bernie learns from history. Bernie knows what's going on. He knows about all the problems that conservative voters might have with him, but he also resonates with conservative voters in many ways, because with my experience with truck drivers, we look at 75% of them are Republican, but yet they're willing, on this Facebook group, they want to shut the whole country down by having massive strikes, truck driver strikes. 26,000 truckers want to shut the country down. That's not a conservative idea. That's a radical leftist idea. But you start to tell them that they're radical leftists, and they're like, no, not leftist. That's terrible. Baseball, hot dog, apple pie, and Chevrolet. We don't want to be leftists. We don't want to be communists. They learned from the McCarthy era. A lot of them are my age and are older, and so they remember all this garbage. It's interesting because we've got to figure out how to be Robin Hood. We have to figure out how to go FDR one more, and we really do need to keep billionaires from existing. Let's look at this one. This is about crossover with Trump voters. This is just a little part of this show. It's a 10-minute show, and this is just a small portion of it. But this is the key element that Bernie or Bust, the movement Bernie or Bust, has figured out about the crossover. They're about Trump voters. How many Trump voters support Sanders? And I think they mentioned Tulsi and Yang also. It's interesting because this is about populism. This is about the class struggle.
Previously, so I found this data via this tweet. Actually, right. This is the Trump voters who are crossing over to support Democratic voters, and in that category, Tulsi Gabbard, Bernie Sanders, and Andrew Yang have the most support among Trump voters. Now, look.
N42.
Caveat. Very small sample size, right? Very small sample size, caveat. However, this is consistent with other polling that I've seen from Economist YouGov and other places. I just think it's so interesting, Mark.
It's consistent with Emerson polling, especially from their April poll.
Because the pat standard conventional wisdom is the further left you are, the less electable you are. And what you see here instead is that actually the best lane to be in terms of winning crossover voters doesn't have to do with your ideology. It has to do with whether or not you are anti-establishment.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the point. And that's why Trump won, because he's anti-establishment. At least I don't think he is, but he's helped other people think he is. And so that same demographic, the poor, the poorly educated voters, rural perhaps voters, they care about economic issues. They care about Social Security. They care about health care. And they also are, this is the scary part for the billionaires, intrigued by the labor movement. They're intrigued by how quickly change can happen, because I grew up in a conservative enclave in Oregon, and it wasn't that crazy. Don't jump to conclusions. But the way I grew up, the values I was taught growing up, is that the government is not to be trusted, but also that unions were not to be trusted. But if you don't trust the government and you don't believe that the government has your best interest in mind, And then you see a bunch of people go out on strike. And what we've seen with the teacher strikes in red states especially, we've seen that after the teachers get mobilized and get improvements for their own situation and improvements for the school children they teach and for the communities they live in, because better schools make everything better. When that happens, then they turn right around and they start getting involved in governors' races and other local races. And then the next step, obviously, is if you've got a bunch of mobilized teachers or truckers or warehouse workers or what have you, then politics is the next thing to conquer. A mobilized workforce is a huge threat to the billionaires, and that's what that's what FDR was threatening them with before. He said, if you don't help me save the people, you're going to have the socialists. There were 2 socialist parties then and 1 communist party, and he said they're going to run over you. They're going to leave their boot prints right in your face. If you don't help me help them, you're going to have these leftist movements. And the conservative voters, the Trump supporters, are intrigued by how quickly you can change things when you get together with other workers and say, we're done. Enough is enough. We're not taking it anymore. If that part, the populist part, gets hooked up to the Democratic Party, which right now it's not even kind of doing. We've got all the billionaires. We've got Bloomberg and Duvall jumping into the race. That's crazy. That's not the direction the Democratic Party needs to go. But if we get the populist, the grubby populism hooked up to the Democratic Party, then we're going to run over the establishment. The establishment is going down. The duopoly is going down. And it's exciting if you think about it. And that's what the New York Times, the Washington Post, that's what CNN and MSDNC, that's what they want to stop in its tracks. They do not want to mobilize labor. If we get the working people riled up and ready to change things, you'll never see anything like it in your lifetime. This is our shot, and we've got to push it. Now, before I leave, Bernie or Bust, Pioneers of Electoral Revolt is a book that talks about how to get this movement going. It makes a great holiday gift for the idealist or suburban centrist Democrat. So people who are already on the Bernie or Bust train will love reading it, to the vote blue no matter who people. So if you know either type of person, they'll probably enjoy this as a holiday gift. Or just buy 12 of them. If you're a hardcore Bernie or Buster, buy 12 of them and spread them around your office or put them in other places. Put them in the front seat of your vote blue no matter who friend's car when their top is down in a warm spring day. I like to start shit, can you tell? So anyway, keep on busting, and I hope to see you tomorrow.
Get on board the Bernie or Bust train. Come get on board the Bernie or Bust train. Once you hear that clickety-clack, there ain't no time for turning back. Oh, get on board